Hello and welcome to this very special edition of the American Health Journal. I'm your host, Roger Cooper. We devote our entire program this time to some fascinating work being done to help our young people who have great difficulty learning in school. If a child you know is really struggling to keep up with the other students, you'll want to hear about this novel approach that harnesses new findings in brain research to give your failing child a new chance. You'll meet John Heath, a man who himself had trouble keeping up in school, but went on to devote his entire career to researching why some students have so much trouble learning. We'll discuss his book, When Bright Kids Can't Learn, and explore his surprising finding. In many cases, these struggling students are very intelligent. So what is it that stands in their way? And we'll see why these unusual-looking exercises may be the hidden key to helping your child catch up with the other kids and gain new self-esteem. All of that and more next on this special American Health Journal. It has to be the ultimate in frustration for students, their parents, and their teachers. Seemingly very bright kids just can't seem to learn what's being taught in class. They fall far behind and become very down on themselves. It's a problem John Heath has been studying since 1988, when he founded an applied research company called Learning Techniques in Salt Lake City. Working with new findings on how the brain works, John Heath believes he's found an overlooked answer to why bright kids can't learn. They are conclusions he was asked to present at Oxford University and that he shares with us.
Usually a child is intelligent. The parent feels they're intelligent. They see some things that they do around the house and they know that they're bright. However, they have taught this child, perhaps taught the child to death, but the teaching is not sticking. So they can't figure out, why is this bright child not able to learn? And so they'll try some tutoring and they'll try different things and they'll work hard at home, and then they come to me and say, we've tried everything now. What's your suggestions? A child like this is usually frustrated, really good at some things, but they have some things they're not so good at, so the parent says, now what's wrong? How come you can do math but you can't read? And so it's real frustrating for the parent, and it's frustrating for the child, because neither one of them know what's wrong. They know what the symptoms are, and they probably have been addressing those symptoms for a number of years by the time I see them. But the repetitions that are usually used to try to remedy that kind of thing don't work on a permanent basis. As long as the repetitions are going on, usually the child does better. But the minute all that special help stops, they start to struggle again because the underlying problems are still there. They weren't addressed.
As we mentioned, John Heath himself had a difficult time learning.
Struggled with learning. I was not a good student, and I had good parents, however, and they tutored me to death, but it didn't help very much. And they kept telling me I was smart, but I couldn't do what other kids could do. So I thought, well, they're just telling me that. It's not really true. They just love me and they're just telling me that. But I had a personality trait that was helpful, and that was that I was tenacious. So even though I couldn't do things the way other people did things, I figured out ways that I could succeed, and I used those approaches to beat my way through school.
John Heath became even more interested in learning when his son exhibited the same learning problems he experienced as a child.
I had a son, and he started doing the same things I did, and I knew what was wrong. Furthermore, I knew what the next 40 years of his life was going to be like. So I was driven to try to find a solution for him. Now, I knew what didn't work because I'd already been down the road, but I didn't know what did work. So I began to look, and that brought me to learning techniques, and the research that we've carried out there.
John Heath says a key to understanding learning is that it involves two phases.
The first phase is sometimes called the scholastic phase or the instructional phase, and most everybody understands that you have to be taught or you can't learn. And so that teaching comes through schools, through special programs that schools have, resource kinds of programs. Parents often get involved and they'll try to help by giving a child additional repetitions. Tutors are employed and they do the same thing. So all those people are involved in dispersing information to an individual. And that's what's involved with the scholastic phase. Then the second phase is called the neurological phase of learning. And that's where each one of us mentally capture these incoming pieces of information and we process those pieces, mentally process them. And as this processing takes place, the product of learning begins to be produced. So people who have trouble with that phase usually have average and many times above average intelligence. So it's not a problem of intellect. They usually have been taught adequately, so it's not that the teaching's been poor either. But what they are having trouble doing is turning teaching into learning, or they're having trouble with that processing part. And you usually see those symptoms, those struggling symptoms, fairly early in their life, and those problems tend not to get better as the years go on. So learning techniques works exclusively with that second phase.
When we come back, John Heath continues the story of his quest to find out why some bright kids can't learn. Stay with us. John Heath's journey to solve the mystery of why bright kids can't learn took a lot of research. He had to assemble a team of experts, observe how children are taught, and eventually look for clues out at the cutting edge of brain research.
Well, we had two goals. One was we wanted to know why seemingly bright children struggle with learning. And the second goal we had was we wanted to know how to fix those problems. So as we began this research, we formed a group of people, a program board, consisting of 5 doctors, all having MD or PhD designation. And what we started with is we really started with curriculum. We thought perhaps the curriculum that schools were using wasn't very good, or maybe their implementation of that curriculum wasn't very good. But as we examined all that, we didn't find any big flaws there. And then it was kind of like lightning struck. And we realized that the problem wasn't the school, it wasn't the teacher, it was the child. And we'd been looking in the wrong place. That's why we couldn't find the answers we were looking for. So we began looking at the child and determined that 20% of the children have a difficult time taking the information that the teacher is giving them and processing it and turning it into learning. So the teacher teaches a class and 80% get it and 20% don't. And the teacher doesn't know what's wrong. She's taught them all the same. So then they go to the next year and the same thing happens. And the next year, those same 20% just struggle year after year. So then when we determined that it was a child and that they were having a difficult time processing information, then we needed to find out, well, what specific processes do they have trouble with? But what was not there is how do you fix those processes? The thought at the time was that they can't be fixed. That what you have to do is you have to learn to live with what you've got and just do the best you can. You're just going to have to work harder, you're going to have more repetitions, but that's your lot in life. It's too bad, but that's the way it is. But that wasn't good enough for us. We thought, no.
John Heath says his biggest breakthrough came from new brain research. Once thought to be fixed, we now know the brain has incredible abilities to rewire itself.
We've been repairing poor processing with stroke victims for years. And we realized that the same processes that they used to improve the way a damaged brain worked would work with someone who was having learning problems, who maybe didn't sustain damage, but there was maybe some development that just didn't occur adequately. So we began to develop procedures by which we could create small strains in those underdeveloped circuits. And pretty soon, that weak circuit was much stronger than it used to be, so the individual could do things that they couldn't do previously.
More on how learning techniques harnesses the brain's powerful ability to change and adapt when American Health Journal continues. The learning techniques approach to helping bright kids overcome their learning problems involves performing a series of carefully designed exercises. They are exercises that at first glance would seem to have little to do with learning. But as John Heath will explain, they have everything to do with training the brain.
Learning techniques uses a technique called Physio-Neural Therapy. And that technique utilizes the plasticity of your brain and causes your brain to remodel areas of weakness.
You will use 4 1-inch colored stickers for this exercise. The arms will be straight at the sides with both feet on the floor. Instruct the student to look down at the stickers and raise the hand and knee with the pink stickers. Then return them to the original starting position. Repeat the movement using the hand and knee with the yellow stickers. Continue working on this exercise until the student can easily raise the right hand with the left knee and the left hand with the right knee, without hesitation or difficulty.
Sometimes people will look at an activity like this and say, that's dumb. Because they think that you're working with a person's legs and hands. You're not working with their legs and hands, you're working up here. So you're not working down here, you're working up here. You're working with the circuits that are causing or making it possible for you to make these movements. So sometimes people, as they see these activities, they say, oh, I can do that in an easier way, and you can. But you won't get the strain that's going to create the gain that's going to change your life.
The following exercise is designed to train the eyes to converge or focus synchronically on an object or moving object while maintaining a clear visual image. This ability is vital during the process of reading.
And people who have trouble finding things with their eyes often have a lot of difficulty reading, because reading is a heavy tracking job. Your eyes have to go from letter to letter to letter and word to word to word and line to line to line. You can't skip things. And you can't take them in an unusual order. And so in our testing, one of the things we want to know is whether a person's eyes track.
Both eyes should stay firmly fixed on the eraser as you move the pencil to about 3 inches from the nose.
And then you say, okay, look at the eraser on this pencil, and then you can just count to yourself, or you can use a timer. So you look at the eraser, and then you look at this eraser, and you look back and forth. And what you want to do is you want to follow their eyes, see the track their eyes take. And what you'll see is you'll see their eyes will sometimes overshoot, and then they'll come back to the eraser. Sometimes they'll track and they'll hit the bottom of the pencil and then come up and find the eraser. Sometimes they'll just kind of quiver, and then they'll move. And when you see those things, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, that's a big problem. No wonder that child skips words, reads the same line twice, and so on. The activity that has stickers in it, stickers on both hands and on your legs, is designed